In the days following my move-in, I found myself more and more on edge. The wedding was in 2 days, and I hadn't said more than 3 words to Kai Parker since the day that I had arrived. I spent most of those days in complete solitude. I didn't make an effort to talk to anyone. I was only spiraling into a greater depression. Delia would come in every once in a while and ask if I ever needed anything, but never cared to talk to me. It all felt so forced. It all felt so wrong. I knew I would have to become a member of their society soon enough, so I took my time enjoying the loneliness of it all before I couldn't be by myself anymore. There was a soft knock at my door. "Come in," I called. The door opened, and my heart immediately began to beat faster in panic. My mother walked in, holding my dreaded bridal gown, and sat it down beside me on the bed. "You don't ever have to speak to me again, but please, I don't mess this up for yourself." She didn't give me time for a response. She turned her back and walked out, closing the door behind her. T had no reaction. At first, but then the anger came swarming in, and so did the pain. None of this made sense to me. Every part of this mess seemed like a fever dream. I couldn't scream or yell, so I resolved to crying. Messing this up for myself would mean running away and living the life Elle wanted. That didn't seem so bad to me, but to everyone else, that was the ultimate crime. The tears felt like streams running down my face. It wasn't until then that I realized that I truly was alone in this world. Not even my fiance was someone I could turn to. I glared at the dress limply laying beside me as I wiped my eyes. It wasn't even the one picked out. It had no value to me. Just a symbol of my freedom being taken away and a new life of eternal torment. I hated it. Everything about the dress, everything about me, all of it. I didn't even have the confidence to leave. I was a weakling, stuck and afraid like a deer in headlights. Nothing made sense to me. Nothing about the entire situation made sense to me. I felt manipulated in more ways than one. After a while of crying and feeling sorry for myself, I fell asleep. Sleep was my only escape now. I was going to take advantage of it. "Miss Rowan, are you awake?" Delia's voice outside of the door startled me awake, and I sat up abruptly, rubbing my eyes with my fists. "Yes, I'm sorry." "What is it?" Delia was quiet for a moment before continuing. "Kai and Mr. and Mrs. Parker have invited you to dinner. It'll be ready in a few moments," she called. My heart sped up. Dinner? By myself with the Parkers? A small little part of me wanted to run and climb out of the window, but I knew I couldn't. I wouldn't make it very far, and I knew the repercussions of being brought back to Kai would only make it worse for myself. I sighed, all right. "I'll be down in a little while." Delia didn't respond, which left me thinking she was annoyed with my response. It wouldn't be the first time someone here was annoyed with me, and it definitely wouldn't be the last. After stalling as much as I could, I put on a small amount of concealer to lighten up my under eyes, and I brushed my hair. They weren't getting the best me. No one deserved it, not even myself. I slowly trudged down the hallway and down the steps to the foyer, where I peeked down the hall and into tea room. Kai sat at the head of the table, and his parents were on either side of him, leaving me to sit at the other side across from him. My gut wrenched at the thought of it. "Just get this over with." Mrs. Parker saw me first and stood up and smiled, holding out a hand for me to come and sit at the table. Kai's face immediately distorted into a look of disgust as I walked in and sat down. "Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Parker," I smiled timidly. Mrs. Parker shot me another smile. "Please, call me Lillian." I returned her smile, slightly at more ease from her kindness. Kai's father glanced over at me and gave me a small nod. "How are you liking the house?" I kept my eyes at the empty plat in front of me. "It's beautiful." Kai scoffed. "Of course it is." Lillian threw a nasty look at her son and turned to me once more. "Is there anything you'd like to be changed?" she asked. I thought the question to be very forward and slightly sneaky, considering it wasn't her house, but seeing Kai's angry facial expression told me to keep it short and sweet. "Of course not. I think it's perfect." Not that I would know anything about interior design enough to ask for changes. Kai's face molded into his normal cold demeanor, which made me feel a lot better in my response. At least he wasn't blatantly angry. Lillian seemed content with my answer and looked over at Mr. Parker. "Have you gotten the grand tour yet?" she asked, changing the subject. I nodded yes, of the upstairs. "Very lovely." Lillian beamed. "My Kai is talented, to say the least." "Does talented in being a complete ass count as well?" I smiled to avoid any thoughts of my disagreeing from them, which seemed to be received perfectly from both Lillian and Mr. Parker. "Enough small talk, Mom. Explain to her what this is about, please." "Mr. Parker shot Kai a glare but didn't speak a word. Lillian nervously chuckled and turned to me. "So, Rowan, there's more to this particular marriage than just vows." "No, really?" "I thought this was just for fun." I made direct eye contact with Kai, who hadn't stopped glaring at me since he spoke. What I'm trying to allude to is that this marriage is built on business above everything. As bad as it sounds, and we need to know that you're going to take it seriously. Offended is an understatement for how I was feeling. My face must have told them exactly what I was thinking. Now, before you assume we're insulting you, we just want to make it clear what our expectations are and ensure that you'll act accordingly to the contract. Mr. Parker chimed in. I sat back in my seat slightly. These people were insane. "So you think I'll be unfaithful to Kai?" I wanted to melt into the floor. It was rare that I blurted whatever I was thinking in front of people that could easily smash me with their thumbs, but I was over the constant mistreatment I had been receiving from everyone in my life up until that point. Lillian was silent, and Kai's face for the first time was completely and utterly stunned. Mr. Parker chuckled bitterly. "No, that's not at all what I was trying to say. What we're trying to ask and ensure is that you won't divorce Kai." Lillian interrupted, her voice now an octave higher than before. Almost choked. "This marriage is more important than you could possibly fathom, and we need to be sure that you will complete the entire contract. That is the only way this will work. I suppose reading the entire contract I had agreed to would have been helpful. I'm now in a whole new world of shit. I don't know what would cause you to ask me that," I answered, although divorce was brought up in my head a few times. Lillian softened. "Rowan, you're a good girl and we want what's best for our son and for you. We just need to know that you won't pull any last-minute stunts. This is very important to all of us, including your parents." I felt like crying. Here I was, immediately to like a piece of property instead of a human with feelings. I knew I had always been seen as an asset to them, but hearing it from all sides of the room, right in front of me, damaged my ego beyond repair. Kai was looking at me again. His look was almost pitiful, but I was too upset to even care. This entire dinner was just a jab at my self-worth. My eyes begged to burn as all three Parkers stared at, waiting for me to speak. I sniffled slightly and hung my head. "No, I will not leave Kai." Lillian smiled once more. "Perfect. That's all we needed to know. Women can be so material these days, and I wouldn't want to put you in that category." "Excuse me? Material?" As she sat there with her diamond ring and fancy fur coat. The entire statement made me boil with rage. How dare she imply that was material? Delia and another woman dressed in the same attire as her appeared in the doorway of the dining room. Saved by the Bell. Dinner. "Sir." Kai waved them on and sipped his glass of what I assumed to be scotch as they awkwardly began placing plates of food in front of us. I kept my eyes down as Mr. and Mrs. Parker dug into the food, happy without a care. Kai wasn't eating, only staring at me. I could feel it. His eyes bore holes into my forehead. He must have felt awkward too, but his parents didn't make him sound like a business benefit. Only I was at the low caliber to deserve such an insult. "Your mother showed me your dress. It's lovely." Lillian tried to lighten the mood, but I was too drained to continue my fake pleasant attitude. "Yes," I responded shortly. "You'll look wonderful at the ceremony." "Don't you mean I'll look wonderful in your bank account?" "Thank you." "Leave her alone, Mother. You've insulted her enough," Kai said flatly. I mentally thanked him for that, but I'm sure he was tired of his parents paying attention to me. I couldn't imagine how he felt, that is, if he had feelings to start with. Lillian gave up on trying to get to me, so she continued a one-sided conversation with her husband and left Kai and I to awkwardly sit and push the food we were served around on our plates. After what felt like an eternity, I was excused to let the Parkers discuss family matters. I said my goodbyes, and Delia walked me up to my room. I waited until she was gone to release all of my pent-up anger. A few punched pillows later, I found myself sitting on the shower floor, the hot water numbing me entirely, which was the only thing keeping me sane. No matter what I did, the dinner conversation kept replaying in my mind. How was the one whose motives were questioned when I had done nothing but act as compliant as I could to their every whim on the marriage? I didn't understand. I couldn't sleep and my head was pounding. I glanced at the clock on my nightstand and read 2:45 in bold numbers. It was late. Late enough everyone would be in bed and I could raid the medicine cabinet to find some Tylenol. Assuming Kai had Tylenol with all of the headaches being a rich and successful businessman brought, I snuck out of my room and down the hall. As I descending the stairs, I heard raised whispers coming from the foyer. I leaned close to the railing, careful to not be seen by whoever was arguing below me. Who was up at this hour? I immediately recognized Kai's snide tone, and then followed his mother's. I knew they were arguing about me. I could hear them speak of the girl. How dare you treat her like that right in front of me? My heart sped up. Was he defending me? I was being truthful. You wanted me to explain, so I did. She needs to know what she's in for since she's so eager to marry you. I almost fell down the steps. If it hadn't have been for my death grip on the railing, I would have met them both at the bottom. Eager? Eager to be made the outsider? Eager to have my life stripped from me? Eager to be the one to blame when the marriage goes wrong, even though it's destined to happen? The nerve. The fucking nerve. You knew what I was talking about. You have no place to discuss my marriage to her like that. And if you know what's good for you, you won't do it again. Rowan is my business mother. You have no right to put her on the spot. Her intentions along with her parents were crystal clear the night they signed the contract. Kai Parker was defending me. Was I hallucinating? Was this a dream? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So now all of a sudden you care for her, after throwing the fit you threw the night you formally met her. You're so unpredictable. I pity her more now than Lever did before. All you Parker men care about is having someone to blame. I never said that. I just don't want to be embarrassed by my parents in my own house. And there it was. He doesn't care. He's just nursing his ego. Kai, you will never be happy. Unfortunately, your father and I won't be around forever. This marriage affects all parties involved, and if we didn't state our conditions, this easily would have ended badly for the business. Either let us take the reins or screw it up yourself. Choose. She already signed the contract. How could this end badly when everything is set in stone in writing? You're just using this to jab at her and her family for shit that happened a long time ago. What? You know this has nothing to do with what happened and everything to do with the business. You're immature if you think otherwise, his mother barked back. Kai was silent for a long time. I felt sick to my stomach. What did he mean shit that happened a long time ago? Go home, mother, was all he said. You know we love you, go. Home. After a long time, the door shut and the entire house was silent. I wasted no time tiptoeing back to my room before Kai could notice that I had been there. Headache or no headache, I'd rather not be caught eavesdropping. I couldn't mentally handle anything else. I'd have to think about it in the morning, but until then all I wanted was to sleep and forget where Elle was. Maybe that was best.